So classical Christian education seems to have the goal of developing a whole, well-rounded individual, not necessarily just training them for their labor. Would you say that's fair? Is that what government schools are trying to do? Make these servile little beings that serve the state?
Yes, but let me provide some historical background to that.
Please.
So originally in Athens, 2,500 years ago, Athens developed this system in their society that was very different from anything that had come before it. We call it democracy, right? But it's this idea that we have these citizen kings who are ruling themselves and are not ruled by a tyrant over them. And all of the education that had taken place before this time, I mean, really throughout all of human history, was what is called servile education. And so the design behind it is that you take a child and you train him or condition him to serve whoever or whatever is at the top of the system.
Hmm.
So in many cases, this is a king or a tyrant or a god, or maybe it's the same thing in the case of, say, Pharaoh. And so you're training them not to live a life of freedom and wisdom and prudence and temperance, but one of service to some other entity.
So you have a farmer who trains his son to be a good farmer so that he can
Yeah.
produce some wheat to then give to his king. That's the point of your whole existence.
Yes.
Hmm.
The Athenians came along and they said, if we're going to have this democratic system where we have these citizen kings, we have to train them not to be in service to some other entity, but to be kings. So we have to train all of them to have the skills that a king would need in order to rule. And so they developed what they called paideia, this Greek word that doesn't really have an English translation. And what they did is they developed this system that brought the Athenian children up into Athenian society. Athenianness, right? So that they could function as a citizen king, living freely and for his own interests, but also recognizing the duties that he has to his fellow man. And that was completely distinct from all the notions of education that existed around it at the time.
Yeah, it seems to be another societal shift.
Yeah.
Like a fundamental change at the core level as to how we are going to orient ourselves in the Christian sense to God and every other to one another, to the world around us. There's a change in what we're doing as a community, as a society, as an institution, even.
Yes, and so the Romans came along after the Greeks, of course, and they loved this idea, citizen kings and all of us being, educated and having rhetorical skills, and so they continued that tradition. And then, of course, very shortly after that, the church came in and saw the greatness of this system, and I would say enhanced it by really bringing it to its real roots and the real core truth of the universe, and adding those three theological virtues. And so now the church is training up the next generation, not necessarily as citizen kings, but as delegates of God exercising dominion over this realm that he has created. And then he's delegated that authority to us to exercise dominion. And we still have duties to our fellow man and to our families and our neighbors. And so that's this concept of orienting the student to God and the world he has created. What's expected of you? What are the things that you owe to your fellow man? And training them in those virtues so that they can live lives of liberty and worship and duty to their fellow man.